It started as any ordinary evening on live television until the air itself seemed to crack with tension. The camera panned across the set, capturing the smug confidence of a figure who had long thrived on outrage and spectacle. Every smirk, every calculated pause radiated arrogance, as if daring the world to challenge him. Across the table sat someone entirely different, composed, unshakable, carrying a quiet dignity that seemed almost impossible to disrupt. The contrast was immediate, electric. Then came the line that would send shock waves across social media. A sharp, biting accusation framed not as debate, but as an attempt to humiliate. The villain's words sliced through the room, designed to provoke, to dominate, to control the narrative. Yet the hero did not flinch. Instead, there was a brief, almost imperceptible pause, a calm that hinted at a storm ready to break. The tension was cinematic, the kind of moment that makes the viewer hold their breath. Every eye in the room, every viewer at home, was now silently asking the same question: who would emerge unscathed? Comments began flying in real time. Clips of the exchange were instantly shared, retweeted, and dissected. Supporters of the villain cheered, convinced the attack had landed. Admirers of the hero leaned closer to their screens, sensing that beneath the calm exterior, something monumental was about to unfold. The stakes were no longer abstract. This was not just a battle of words. It was a collision of values, of vision, of identity itself. And in that charged silence, it became painfully clear that what came next would be impossible to ignore. But what happened next left everyone stunned. The nation was already on edge. Headlines screamed about division, distrust, and a political climate fractured along every imaginable line. The debates weren't just about policies anymore. They were about the very soul of the country. In this atmosphere, every word, every gesture carried weight far beyond the studio lights. Millions were watching, waiting, judging, and sharing. Every viewer had a stake, whether they realized it or not. For the hero, this confrontation was deeply personal. Years of dedication, of tireless service, and of standing up for communities too often overlooked had led to this very moment. It was more than a debate. It was a test of integrity under fire. Every insult aimed at them wasn't merely rhetorical. It was a challenge to everything they represented: dignity, fairness, and the belief that America could be better if it honored all its people, not just those in power. The villain, on the other hand, seemed to thrive in chaos. With every smirk, every cutting remark, they sought to assert dominance, to undermine not just the opponent across the table, but the very ideals the hero fought to uphold. The contrast could not have been starker. Here was arrogance set against principle, spectacle pitted against substance, and yet the villain believed the rules of decency did not apply to them. Social media had already become a battlefield. Clips of the initial exchange were circulating, hashtags trending, memes spreading faster than any official statement. People were choosing sides, debating not only what was said, but who deserved to lead, who deserved to be heard, who embodied the values of a nation struggling to find its moral compass. And then came the whispers, the hints that something extraordinary was about to unfold. Observers began to sense that this wasn't just a clash of personalities, but a moment that could redefine the narrative, challenge assumptions, and leave an indelible mark on public consciousness. The tension was electric. Every pause, every measured glance between the two figures held the promise
of revelation. America was watching. Immigrants, activists,
Families and everyday citizens alike felt the weight of what was happening. This confrontation was bigger than a single broadcast. It was about identity, about justice, about whether courage and calm could prevail over hubris and aggression. As tension simmered, the villain's true colors began to show. The villain did not arrive on this stage by accident. Their ascent had been carefully orchestrated, a calculated blend of charisma, cunning, and relentless self-promotion. From early appearances in local politics to national headlines, they had cultivated an image of confidence that teetered dangerously close to arrogance. Public speeches were delivered with an almost theatrical flair, every word measured to provoke, dominate, and command attention. They spoke with conviction, but often contradicted themselves, rewriting history in real time, reshaping facts to suit the narrative of personal triumph. One particularly revealing moment came during a nationally televised interview when the villain confidently proclaimed, "I have always put the country first," while footage from just months earlier showed policies that disproportionately harmed marginalized communities. Critics were quick to call out the hypocrisy, yet supporters cheered, captivated by the veneer of authority. It was a carefully maintained illusion, strength masked as integrity, confidence masked as insecurity. The contradictions piled up, a house of cards threatening to collapse, but the villain continued to parade through corridors of power, untouchable, or so it seemed. Behind the scenes, staff and colleagues whispered of temper tantrums, reckless decision-making, and a penchant for cutting allies down when they dared question authority. Memo after memo revealed a leader more obsessed with perception than principle, more committed to personal victory than public service. Social media lit up with leaked clips and sharp commentary, dissecting missteps that ranged from policy blunders to humiliating gaffes on live television. Every viral clip reinforced the duality of the figure, outwardly commanding, yet internally teetering on the edge of overconfidence and hubris. Yet the villain's story was not only one of arrogance. There were glimpses of genuine intelligence, a keen understanding of strategy, and a remarkable ability to exploit divisions. They had built networks of influence, amassed supporters, and learned to turn controversy into currency. And it worked, again and again, until their reputation became inseparable from spectacle, drama, and shock value. The world had grown accustomed to this pattern, a dazzling rise, a provocative statement, a media frenzy, and a seemingly invincible persona that left opponents flustered and audiences riveted. But beneath the polished veneer, cracks were forming. Every overreach, every calculated insult, every desperate attempt to dominate the narrative only heightened anticipation for a reckoning. Viewers began to sense that the story was not linear, that hubris carries a cost, that the higher one climbs, the farther one can fall. Memes circulated, commentary exploded, and journalists hinted at controversies long buried, waiting for the right moment to resurface. The world was primed for a turning point, though few yet realized it. Cinematically, the villain's life reads like a thriller, a series of calculated moves punctuated by missteps, triumphs, and misjudgments. Their presence commanded attention, yet each gesture carried an undertone of desperation, a subtle tremor beneath the confidence, a whisper of vulnerability behind the smirk. Audiences both admired and feared them, caught between fascination and moral outrage, unable to look away from the spectacle they had so meticulously created. Yet, even with all this power, one challenger would rise. The hero's journey began far from the polished sets and camera lights, in neighborhoods often overlooked by the headlines that now consumed the nation. Born into a family that knew struggle intimately, they learned early that resilience was not a choice, it was a necessity. Their parents worked tirelessly, often juggling multiple jobs, just to ensure there was food on the table and a roof over their heads. There was no glamour in their upbringing, no shortcuts, only relentless effort and a quiet insistence that integrity mattered more than applause. From a young age, the hero exhibited a curiosity that could not be contained. School became both sanctuary and battleground, a place where they excelled academically, yet faced the subtle, sometimes overt pressures of bias and exclusion. Friends and mentors recall a child who would stay after class to tutor others, someone who would argue passionately, not for personal recognition, but because fairness demanded it. Every small act, every gesture of courage was a thread woven into the fabric of the person they were becoming, a figure defined by principle, empathy, and an unshakable sense of responsibility. As they grew, the hero's life became a mosaic of service and sacrifice. College years were marked by both achievement and adversity. They juggled work and study, sometimes foregoing sleep and comfort, driven by a conviction that opportunity was earned through effort, not entitlement. It was during these formative years that the hero began to understand the systemic barriers many face, communities silenced, dreams deferred, voices ignored. This understanding would later become the foundation for every policy stance, every public appearance, and every moment of courage in the political arena. Early in their career, the hero chose paths that demanded risk over reward. Volunteer work, grassroots organizing, and advocacy for marginalized communities were not glamorous, but they built a reputation of unwavering dedication. Colleagues described late nights strategizing on behalf of families fighting eviction, communities battling pollution, and children striving for a quality education. Recognition was never the goal. Impact was. And yet, quietly, the hero began to attract attention, not for spectacle, but because when they spoke, it was always rooted in truth, clarity, and a profound sense of justice. The hero's rise was never meteoric, never fueled by theatrics. Every victory was hard-earned, forged in the crucible of experience, tested by challenge, and refined through failure. Campaigns won on trust rather than charisma, debates dominated not by insults but by substance, and moments of public pressure met with calm and deliberation rather than panic. Friends and mentors note an almost preternatural ability to read a room, to anticipate tactics, and to respond with precision, skills honed not in studios or press rooms, but in community halls, town meetings, and quiet offices where lives were being changed. Yet the journey was not without personal cost. Sacrifices were made, relationships strained by long hours, moments of exhaustion that tested the limits of endurance, and the constant pressure of being a visible representative for people whose struggles often went unseen. But each hardship strengthened the hero, deepening empathy and forging a moral compass that refused to bend in the face of intimidation or spectacle. It was this combination of intellect, courage, and humanity that would soon place them directly opposite the very figure who thrived on chaos and arrogance. By the time the hero stepped onto the studio stage, they were prepared not just to defend a position, but to embody a principle that dignity, reason, and service are not outdated ideals, they are the foundation of a just society. Every challenge faced, every barrier overcome, and every quiet act of defiance against injustice had been training for this exact confrontation. The audience would soon witness a collision not just of ideas, but of character, courage and consequence. Supporters, long aware of the hero's integrity, felt a swelling sense of anticipation. Social media buzzed with admiration for someone who represented the promise of an America where hard work, compassion, and identity could coexist with power and influence. And even those skeptical of their rise sensed the tension in the air, the weight of expectation, and the inevitability of a moment that would define more than a debate. It would define a standard. The hero's calm confidence, rooted in years of struggle and preparation, stood in contrast to the villain's spectacle. Every pause, every measured word, every glance was a promise that when the moment arrived, they would meet arrogance with truth, hubris with dignity, and chaos with clarity. The stage was set for a showdown no one would forget. The lights dimmed slightly, the cameras zooming in as if anticipating the storm about to unfold. The villain leaned forward, eyes glinting with calculated malice, ready to strike with words sharpened like blades. Their first salvo was swift and cutting, an attempt to dominate the conversation before it even began. "Your ideas sound nice on paper," they sneered, "but reality doesn't bend to idealism." The words were delivered with theatrical precision, meant to unsettle, to provoke, to claim control. But the hero did not flinch. A subtle inhale, a measured pause, a calm gaze directed not at the villain, but at the camera, as if acknowledging every viewer watching at home. The stakes were higher than any insult could reach. The room seemed to hold its breath. The villain, sensing resistance where there should have been submission, escalated further, launching a barrage of pointed accusations and manipulative framing designed to sow doubt both in the hero and in the audience. Sharp exchanges followed. The villain interrupted, mocked, and tried to turn facts into traps. Every gesture, every smirk radiated the arrogance that had fueled their rise. Yet with every attack, the hero responded not with defensiveness, but with clarity.
Each rebuttal was precise, each point reinforced with evidence, each pause loaded with dramatic weight. The contrast was cinematic, one figure unraveling under their own hubris, the other embodying patience, strategy, and moral authority. The live audience reacted, caught between tension and awe. Gasps punctuated the villain's jabs, murmurs rippled through the studio as viewers sensed that momentum was subtly,
inevitably shifting. Cameras captured the micro-expressions, the flicker of uncertainty in the villain's eyes, the quiet resolve in the hero's demeanor. Social media exploded simultaneously. Viewers at home dissected every word, every pause, every subtle shift in tone. Memes and clips began circulating even mid-broadcast, framing the duel as more than politics. It was a battle of character, a clash between arrogance and integrity, spectacle and substance. As the debate intensified, the villain's attacks grew increasingly desperate, revealing cracks in the carefully constructed armor. Yet the hero remained unshaken, turning each insult into an opportunity to highlight principles, fairness, and evidence. The pacing was almost cinematic, each exchange building tension like a crescendo, each silence pregnant with anticipation. Viewers could almost hear the collective heartbeat of a nation holding its breath. The imbalance was clear. One figure teetered on the edge of losing composure, exposed for all to see, while the other radiated control, focus, and a quiet inevitability. And as the debate reached its peak, the audience sensed that a pivotal moment was coming, one that would shift the balance irreversibly. Then came the moment that changed everything. The room fell silent, every eye fixed on the hero, as if time itself had slowed. The villain, sensing that their usual tactics had failed, tightened their jaw, searching for an opening that no longer existed. The air was electric, thick with anticipation. Then the hero leaned forward slightly, their voice calm but carrying the weight of unshakable conviction. Let's be honest, they began, each word deliberate. This isn't about policy. It's about fear. Fear of accountability. Fear of being exposed. Fear of facing the truth. The words landed like a hammer. The villain blinked, caught off guard by the precision and clarity of the statement. The audience murmured, a collective intake of breath, as though they had been waiting for exactly this moment. The hero continued, layering fact upon fact, dismantling every claim with meticulous logic, and exposing contradictions the villain had thought were invisible. With each point, the villain's confidence waned, a subtle shift that even the cameras captured, a twitch of a hand, a falter in their voice, a flash of panic in their eyes. Pauses were expertly employed, letting each revelation sink in. The hero's demeanor never wavered.
Steady, composed, commanding respect not through theatrics, but through undeniable integrity. Look at the record, the hero pressed. Look at the consequences. Leadership is not about spectacle. It's about service, about truth, about protecting the very people whose voices you try to silence. The words reverberated across the room, punctuated by a stunned silence,
followed by applause that seemed to erupt from every corner, even through the TV screens of viewers at home. Social media erupting in real time. Clips of the hero's calm, devastating rebuttal went viral almost instantly. Hashtags praising reason and dignity began trending. Tweets highlighted the villain's faltering composure. Memes juxtaposed arrogance with calm resolve. The ripple effect was immediate. Commentators dissected every moment. Celebrities amplified the message. Ordinary citizens shared clips with captions like, "This is what leadership looks like," and "Finally, someone who speaks truth without fear." The hero's performance became a shared cultural moment, a reference point for civility, courage, and principled defiance. The villain tried to respond, to regain control, but the momentum had shifted irreversibly. Each word stumbled over the next. Each gesture lacked the conviction it once carried. The hero, meanwhile, maintained a rhythm that was almost cinematic, a cadence of clarity, moral authority, and measured power. It was as if the entire room, viewers, audience, and even the cameras themselves were being drawn into a narrative bigger than the debate itself, a story of integrity prevailing against arrogance. Every detail mattered. The subtle nods from allies in the room, the rising applause from viewers online, the visible cracks in the villain's facade. The hero had turned the tide, not with anger or spectacle, but with strategy, poise, and the undeniable force of truth. And as the final points were made, the villains slumped slightly, the full weight of their unraveling finally visible to all. In that charged silence, it was clear. This was more than a debate. It was a reckoning, a moment when preparation, courage, and principle converged into a single, unforgettable act. The audience felt it, the world felt it, and the ripple effects would only grow stronger in the hours and days to come. The world would not forget this moment. The moment the debate ended, the digital world ignited. Clips of the hero's calm, devastating rebuttal flooded timelines, screens, and feeds. Hashtags praising dignity, truth, and leadership surged into trending lists. Hashtag integrity wins. Hashtag calm over chaos. And hashtag leadership with courage became rallying cries across social platforms. Memes juxtaposed the villain's smirks with the hero's steady gaze, spreading with lightning speed, sparking both laughter and admiration. Every share, every comment, every retweet amplified a simple truth. The hero had not only survived the assault, they had owned it. Commentators dissected the performance with relentless enthusiasm. Political analysts marveled at the precision, the composure, the way facts were layered over principle. Pundits described it as a masterclass in accountability and a defining moment for American discourse. Late-night shows replayed the exchanges, highlighting the villain's faltering confidence and the hero's unwavering clarity. Even those who had previously doubted the hero's reach acknowledged the impact. This was no ordinary debate. It was a statement that reverberated far beyond the studio. Celebrities and public figures joined the conversation, lending their voices to the chorus of validation. Tweets from respected leaders praised courage under fire, applauded empathy over aggression, and celebrated the embodiment of values many feared had been lost. Everyday citizens shared clips with captions that ranged from personal declarations of hope to calls for change in their own communities. The hero's influence was growing in real time, their story resonating not only as a political victory but as a cultural symbol, a testament to what could be achieved when preparation, integrity, and calm met arrogance with unwavering resolve. Meanwhile, the villain's aura of invincibility crumbled. Clips exposing contradictions, past gaffes, and the unraveling demeanor during the debate became fuel for public scrutiny. Commentary shifted from strategic critique to moral questioning, challenging the foundations of the villain's authority. Social media amplified every misstep, creating a cascade effect. What once seemed untouchable was now visibly fragile. The contrast between hero and villain became stark, almost cinematic, illustrating not just a personal triumph, but a tide turning in public perception. Across the nation, viewers engaged in conversations that transcended the debate itself. Communities discussed accountability, leadership, and integrity. Families debated the qualities they wanted to see in those who claimed to represent them. Schools, workplaces, and online forums buzzed with the energy of a moment that reminded citizens of their power, not only to witness truth, but to demand it. The hero had ignited more than admiration. They had inspired reflection, conversation, and a growing sense of collective tossability. Yet even amidst the viral frenzy, the hero remained grounded, their calm demeanor a reminder that this moment, while monumental, was part of a larger journey. Their rising influence was undeniable, their moral authority increasingly respected, and the contrast with the villain more pronounced with each passing hour. The shockwaves rippled outward, touching hearts, minds, and conversations in ways that would shape public discourse for weeks to come. But the true lesson extended far beyond one debate. In the quiet aftermath, beyond the flashes of cameras and the frenzy of online commentary, the true significance of the moment began to settle. The hero, having navigated the gauntlet of insult, spectacle, and provocation, did more than win a debate. They offered a lesson that transcended politics. It was a reminder that courage is not loud, that strength is not measured by dominance, and that dignity in the face of adversity carries a resonance far stronger than any theatrics or empty bravado. The confrontation had revealed a universal truth. Leadership is defined not by fear or aggression, but by service, integrity, and a commitment to values larger than oneself. Every measured response, every calm rebuttal had been a testament to the idea that acting with principle, even under pressure, can illuminate a path for others. It was not just a personal triumph. It was an affirmation that honesty, empathy, and courage remain powerful tools for change, capable of cutting through noise, deception, and distraction. Across living rooms, classrooms, and social feeds, viewers reflected on the hero's example. Families discussed what it meant to stand firm in their convictions. Young people, often skeptical of public discourse, found a model of civility and clarity worth emulating. Communities that had felt overlooked or silenced recognized themselves in the hero's calm resilience, seeing that their values, their struggles, and their voices mattered and could be defended without resorting to hostility or compromise of principle. The emotional crescendo was palpable. Supporters celebrated not merely the victory, but the manner in which it was achieved. There was inspiration in witnessing composure triumph over chaos, wisdom over arrogance, and steadfast moral clarity over empty bravado. It was a moment that reminded citizens that their own actions, measured, courageous, and rooted in principle, could ripple outward, shaping dialogue, influencing decisions, and fostering a culture of respect and accountability. Ultimately, the hero reframed the narrative entirely. The debate was no longer about a single confrontation or one individual's failings. It was about the enduring power of values, the importance of service to others, and the possibility of a society where dignity and justice guide every interaction. The lesson was simple but profound. In a world often dominated by spectacle, integrity can be revolutionary, and courage can be contagious. And so, the story became a symbol for all of us. The debate that captivated a nation, the clash that had everyone on edge, now settled into history. But its impact was far from over. From the opening moments of tension to the hero's calm, decisive rebuttal, the story had revealed more than a confrontation between two figures. It had illuminated the power of integrity, courage, and conviction. The headline-making exchanges, the viral moments, and the social media storm all pointed to one undeniable truth. Principled action, grounded in dignity and service, can change the narrative and inspire millions. As viewers, we are reminded that this moment was not just entertainment, it was a lesson. It was about the values we carry, the courage we show when challenged, and the voices we refuse to let be silenced. The hero's example demonstrates that calm reasoning, preparation, and an unwavering commitment to truth can prevail even in the most charged, chaotic arenas. It is a call for all of us to stand firm, to speak boldly, and to act with integrity, no matter the pressure or the audience. If this story resonated with you, now is the time to join the conversation. Share this video with friends, discuss the lessons it holds, and reflect on the values that define you. Subscribe to the channel to follow more moments where courage meets conviction, and stay part of a community that celebrates truth, justice, and dignity. The debate may have ended, but the ripple effect of action, courage, and inspiration is only beginning. Be part of it.